what it's like to be a Nexennial, which is a Gen X and a Millennial. Late Gen X, early Millennial. So here it goes. I was born in 1983. Um, I had two parents, both worked. I was the youngest of four kids. I was left alone a lot. Spent way too much time by myself. Always felt left out. Felt like an only child, even though I was the youngest. Um, Always felt isolated. Stayed home a lot. Didn't know how to make friends very well, but it was still an interesting experience. I remember being able to go outside during the summer, um, getting a rollerblade, a roller skate, bike ride, going to the lakes on a pontoon boat with my family to be able to go swim at the lake and camp, and it was always a interesting experience. And I remember my grandparents were babysitters for us, especially for me. I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house, about half the time, especially as a kid. I always liked to go into their house. I always felt safe. It was my safe space. Uh, I always regretted it when I got older and my family started moving around for my mom's job and took us further away from my grandparents. I didn't feel as safe and secure. This felt even lonelier. That's when the lone I think that's when the loneliness really sink in. Was not having my grandparents there as I guess as someone to talk to and be near and not have to worry about being so isolated feeling. One of the things I would do was lean into drawing. It was one of the sources of comfort that I would have is to be able to just draw and color, and it's how I learned how to draw a little bit. It was all those times as a kid. Seventh Heaven Season 1 review and thoughts. Um, why does Matt always get blamed for everything, even when he doesn't get in trouble, even when it's not his fault? That would really piss me off that my parents would do that, which has happened before. And at the beginning of the season, Annie's mom ends up having terminal cancer. They kind of hide that from the kids as long as possible. And then I think that's not the greatest way to go about it, but it's their choice. It doesn't give the kids much time to get used to the idea before she passes. Also, I think that there was that was a little shady and didn't allow much time for them to say goodbye to her mom, their grandmother, for her kids. And I love how Aaron Spelling, the creator of the show, touched on different themes like racism with the Hamilton family, their friends, and they're a black family, and their dad's a preacher as well, and how the Camdens, the Watt family, rally around them and get the community involved to help rebuild and support the black church that the Mr. Hamilton's a part of. I also love the Halloween episode where they touch on people with disabilities and how the people with disabilities that struggle with mental and physical illnesses are not freaks, and you should get to understand and know somebody before making snap judgments. I also like how they shed light on domestic abuse and how Eric was helping a lady who had that in her life, and her husband was violently abusing her, mentally and physically abusing her, and how he was helping to get her out of that situation and put her with family. And luckily, her family's on the other side of the country, and how it created a temporary rift between him and his wife, but how they worked it out and come together and helped the lady get away from the guy, her husband. And that's it so far. And let's talk about Julie, the Reverend Camden's sister. She got an alcohol problem. She got drunk, come to their house, stayed with him, risked his family, his kids, put them at risk because of her drinking issue, and he had to help. He took it upon himself to help her get clean enough to go to a rehab facility, which is admirable, I guess. But just I don't know, just having that around your kids, I don't know. That's either very, very risky or brave or both. And it was good that she was able to get into a rehab and get better and make better for herself. But that's a big risk. And they've got, what, 5 kids so far? That's a lot of kids, especially on a single parent income, and it's nothing wrong with being a stay at home mom like his wife is. That's great, but 5 kids, that's going to be a tight budget. I just couldn't imagine having 5 kids with one income. No matter how good that income is, that's still a really big stretch. Hey, this is Cassie with a brief review of Stargate SG-1. So here it goes. I used to love watching Stargate SG-1 when I was younger. I think it was late teens and early adulthood. I would watch and rewatch, and I used to love the different plots they would have about meeting new people, going to different worlds, exploring the universe, and the science fiction that made it happen was also really cool. It was very nice. I also remember watching, what was it? Quantum Leap with, I think the actor's last name is Bakula. Oh, Scott Bakula, yeah. I always had a big crush on him when I was little. So he was always hot, and that was one of the few shows my mom would watch with me. I guess because Scott Bakula was pretty good looking. And I remember the different times that he would jump into different lives, and I guess I liked it because he got to go and be different people and have different adventures and explore different types of, I guess, cultures and different types of living. And it was always fascinating just to see how he would get to travel the world in a way. And then I guess eventually he learned that, I guess he wanted to be himself most of all, and he had to go out and exploring, I guess, in a way to finally find that he wanted to be himself, I guess. But he got to do a lot of good when he was exploring. Yeah, I also like to watch MacGyver and those reruns. I really love that show. And Richard Dean Anderson, that plays in MacGyver, later on goes on to play the lead role in Stargate SG-1, which was awesome. I like some of the callbacks and throwbacks they put in there, right in there, in the Stargate SG-1 about his former character, even though in Stargate SG-1 he doesn't play a genius guy. But I still like how they tied the throwback and callbacks into it, which was hilarious. it was it was interesting on that aspect. And I remember watching some Stargate reruns, and one of my family members saw it and goes, "That's Richard Dean Anderson from the from before." I was like, "Yeah, it is." And we was having a good time watching it. I like in MacGyver how he's a super genius, and how he can always use different things to get out of a tough situation and to save himself and others, and how he doesn't have to resort to using weapons to kill people, and how he's resourceful enough to build things on the fly. That kind of resourcefulness was always fun to watch. I always liked how he traveled and got in and out of good and bad situations, and I like how it showed the resourcefulness of him as a character in MacGyver. It was really fun to watch. It was always enjoyable. Didn't have to worry about, well, there's violence, but it wasn't like violence all the time and just for being violent's sake. It was refreshing to watch an action movie that didn't just rely on having pointless violence. There's always a point to it, and even though it wasn't as violent as it could have been. And I like the different characters he came across, like his arch nemesis Murdaugh, and his other endeavors. And it was always interesting to see that he would, I guess, from one relationship to another, and how he wasn't a settling down type, and then at the end how he found out that he had a kid. So he wasn't so alone after all, and he seemed like he was actually kind of glad that he did have a kid there at the end, which was a fascinating thing. I wish they would have explored more, but they didn't. And I like how his boss had made the crack of, "I guess you ain't the only one left, huh?" Which was also kind of funny.